Well, that took a while, but we're live.
We had a really good pause, really good pause, really good moment there where you could have just faded out.
I
So
slowly did.
yeah. So this is 2020 show number 20. Really? I thought it was 19. Why are my notes so weird? Oh man, are you sure it's 20?
I changed it before we did everything.
That would be yes. You're sure.
Yes, I am sure that it's 20. That the that it's episode 20.
I mean, I just want blunt answers. So we're getting really close to show number 100. It's going to be a really special episode. We'll have a face reveal. So I really like the music. Actually, it pumps me up. It's my particular genre of music.
I thought you said you weren't a big fan of house.
That I don't know. Is that house? Then I
It's the
like.
house playlist.
Well, that doesn't mean that it is house. It just means that they maybe mislabeled it or something. There's a lot
It's
of electronica in there. That's why I like it.
that's what
That is not what house necessarily is, but maybe if it's a critical part, then I like some of it. Um, Strangely, I went back. So I like a particular voice and a particular style and all that kind of stuff. I know this about myself, and there's a lot of variety often getting into electronica. But the one thing that I really got interested in, like some time ago, is something called folk metal. And I've talked about metal before. Have is It's just like a set of instruments, maybe. It's a loudness level, maybe, right? And there's a whole bunch of variation in there. There's no constraint. It just tends to be a little bit more aggressive than regular rock, regular quote unquote regular hard rock, and and an angle that's different, right? And folk metal is really interesting because they start fiddling with well, first off, they start fiddling with old languages, and so you've got people singing in maybe a language like Gaulish, or Gaelic, or some. I mean, I don't really. It doesn't matter to me if it's some other language. And so recently, I've been listening to. I'd already heard some of it. I've been listening to this band. I That's the problem. I have no actual chance of pronouncing band names when it's in some foreign language. And in this particular case, not only do I have no chance of actually pronouncing their name because it's foreign, it's using like funny characters. So it makes it I can't even give it like a bad English attempt.
doesn't Frisian use strange characters.
Well, Frisian is, so for people that haven't been following, Frisian is the closest cousin to English, and it uses the Latin character set, and a lot of languages do. But like a language like French, it uses accents, and it's only got a couple of accents on a few of its vowels, and I don't really understand. I haven't been taught what any of that means. I kind of stagnated at the end of week one, and we're about to enter into week three, so I need to catch up. So that's Frisian. I don't know if there's like Frisian folk metal. That would be the most awesome stuff, considering the history of the Frisian people is metal as as so so these are the people that so the story would go, these are the people who in the late Roman Empire were so fed up with the taxes that the Romans oppressed everybody with, that they actually sent back the tax collector's head. And so, as was predictable, the Romans sent the army to go and go and break them, which they absolutely would do everywhere. That's how they captured everything in the first place. And the Frisians kicked their asses and sent them packing. And it's like one of the very few places that was capable of that, partly because this is late stage. the late stage Romans, and so I'm sure there were funding and population and all kinds of other problems that led to them like sending another army or whatever else. At any rate, the Frisian people essentially got converted to Christianity. That's what ended up bringing them into the fold of all of Europe. And now they're just like a set of peoples that are crescent absorbed into separately into Germany and into the Netherlands. And so there ends up being 3 languages. 2 are in Germany and 1 is in the Netherlands with a few variations. With like they're the same language, but they're kind of like accents with a few different words. At any rate, so there's some history with the Frisians. What's weird about the terrain, what's weird about the Netherlands in general is the Netherlands is like basically, well, I suppose the right way of putting it is the Netherlands is the only place on Earth, technically, or at least in contemporary times, like the last couple thousand years, that's never been colonized. It was actually manufactured by the people living there. So it was this floodplains that had old Frisians there who came, who lived for a while, and then left because the water rose and flooded them out. And the water receded, and a different people went there who are also called Frisian. And those are the newer people that kind of settled in. And some people kind of came and tried to conquer the place here and there, and it kind of doesn't work out when the natives understand the tides so well that they can and they had some of the coolest horses on earth. If they don't breed them anymore, like there's a breed of horse, I'll totally go down this route. I'm going to be half wrong on a whole lot of this stuff, and I don't mind learning. I don't mind being corrected. So a Frisian war, we don't have war horses anymore. We don't breed them. And the Frisian horses are a class of their own, unmatched on Earth. And they're like, I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, horses are really big. And when you get up close to a horse, it's like, wow, it's like taller than you. I want you to imagine a war horse that's shoulder height. What would it be? It will be taller than head height at its back. The kind of hugeness that is inconceivable now. And
the front part of the horse is shorter than the back?
No. I mean, if you were to hop on this thing, it would be head height. It's a war horse the size of a bull, bigger than that even. Like they're absolutely astonishingly large. I'm probably a little bit over exaggerating it, but yeah, bigger than a bull. Yeah, the kind of scary that it was.
I really don't want to imagine that.
It was legendary at the time. It's like the size of a moose. For all you Canadians and Northern Americans that understand just how big that is. It can take on a car. The car will lose. There are some nice videos. Like, okay, so okay, I'm not even gonna go down on how strange and extremely dangerous moose are. They're cool unless they're murderous. Just stay away from them. Please stay away from them. And if they're curious and nice and want to walk up to you and investigate you, try to get out. Try to get away. It's not being nice. It just wants to know if it can, if it can just like idly murder you or what. They are very, very dangerous. Yeah. So and this isn't one of those cases where, if you learn a language, you learn a little bit about the culture and the history. And I understood all of this stuff before I even grasped the possibility of learning that language. And and there's some mild interest that's happening there. Like I'm getting some people that are like, Facebook is, well, a lot of the problems with social media these days is, there's a lot. I knew from way back when, in the early internet days, let's say, that this would be a problem. The problem that humanity is facing now isn't information, isn't access to information. It's dealing with the verbosity. And in conversation, there is a tactic in, how would I put it? So there's a version of sophistry. So we might incorrectly call it an argument, but there is the antagonistic conversation that happens. And one of the strategies, one of the dishonest strategies, is argument with verbosity, which is a person just rambles a whole lot of incoherent garbage, and the response can't address all the points because it's all ludicrous and there's just too much of it. And the other person just declares victory because, oh, you didn't counter this, so you must be agreeing with this. So and it's dishonest. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I forgot why I went down that train of thought. Oh my. Wow. What was it talking about before, Minion? Be my memory. You weren't paying attention? Wow. Okay, so I was talking about... yes, okay. So okay, I got it. Oh, you got it. Okay. So it's about access to information, but the problem is it's all there, more or less. Generally less, but the internet is flooded with a verbosity of possibilities, and it's useless because of that. It's a thing where you don't even know how to cull through, how to curate through all of what's possible. And this is really seen with something like social media. So a person can come along with on YouTube and they can be like, well, I'm subscribing to this and to this and to this. And they're subscribed to 100 different things. And now YouTube is like, well, I want to have you really engaged on the platform. And engagement isn't about having, so what's the mind of YouTube, what's it thinking? Something like, in order to keep a person engaged on their platform, they need to curate the possibilities, because there are too many, and present the things that it deems as being most captivating in order to capture more attention for longer. And it makes a bunch of well-educated guesses now, because the engine has been running for a whole lot of people and a whole lot of videos and a whole lot of viewing hours. And so it's gotten smart about it. And so it's it's trying to automate it. And the problem is that it is unknowable how those mechanics work, and it's creepy and scary. And having something manipulate what you have access to, and having you pretend like it's based on your choice because you subscribe to all those things, means that you can be manipulated by having only certain content fed to you in order to, well, manipulate your interest in the platform. And it can manipulate your interest in topics. You're interested in topic A, gives you more of topic A. Well, that's not necessarily healthy. That might captivate, that might capture attention, right? That might make you interested, right? It might keep you there, but that's not necessarily what's healthy for the investment of your time. Maybe you want a little bit of topic B, topic C. You subscribe to all those other things. You're just not being given those other things because. And maybe, right? And so there's another mechanic of subscriptions and notifications that happens on YouTube, for example. And there is a similar problem. So I was talking about the language Frisian, and I wanted to bring up Facebook. I'm getting more and more people that are just kind of popping in, but what they're doing is they're joining a Facebook group and then nothing. They're not participating. They don't know how, or they're waiting for somebody else there to be the active one. And this is like a whole bunch of introverts waiting for the extrovert to actually make the party happen. And a lot of what I'm seeing, well, I mean, that's how I work because I'm quite introverted. I'm quite shy, believe it or not. And having like I founded a Facebook group and for this, and I've got a lot of people that are like popping in and seeing what it's like, and but everybody's waiting for everybody else to do stuff. And it's been challenging. And a lot of the public, there's like an atmosphere that exists out there because there is so much possibility, and everybody ends up being like subscribing to a bunch of stuff, and what they're doing is they're expecting to be served via other people's effort creating content and the automation curating it, and for them to sit back and be kind of a passive consumer of this stuff. And it's weird to have seen this unfold because I'm older than social media. I'm older than the kind of internet that most people would remember these days. And having seen the internet turn into this thing where it's possible to be social, it's possible for everybody to create content, and most people are going to be incompetent at it. And most people of those aren't going to learn to be better. They're just going to be kind of terrible. But most people these days, they're not even doing that. They're not even doing their worst. So they're just sitting there as consumers. Like this internet reception thing is working out just like television used to. And it's very strange because the tools were there for the highly motivated people back in the early days, even when they had terrible tools to work with, even though the techniques weren't there, even though, the joke is using a potato camera. And everything was low resolution and terrible lighting and awkward, etc. But way back in the early days, those highly motivated people were producing content, and things were good back then. But now that content gets kind of overwhelmed by the professional stuff. And I don't know, Minion, maybe you didn't know this. I think it was a couple of $1 million that YouTube decided to give to quote unquote mainstream media in order to bring them up to speed on how to use YouTube. And then they created the homepage now has news outlets on it. Like on the front.
When was this?
This happened probably more than a year ago now.
No, I don't know about that then. I knew at one point YouTube gave various channels and groups money for production to cover production costs and such. But that was a while ago.
Yeah, maybe that is what I'm referring to. And it's a really, well, it's kind of offensive because there were a whole lot of, no, that's so. I'm not sure how I feel about it. So first off, what we've thought about on a lot of this stuff as independent journalism is just some presenter reading an article and being more interesting than that essay and just rambling it off, and they have the curation of whatever gossip of the day and they compile it all. It's worthless. It's not actually adding anything to anything. It's curation, so there's value in it, but they could go away and nothing would happen to that content. It would still be there. They are not necessary, and yet their sources are necessary. So the quote unquote mainstream media, the actual producers of the news, them coming on board and presenting things firsthand, it should be valuable. Everybody should think of it as valuable. The problem is they came late, and so nobody likes them or their style, and they're just awful. I mean, awful presentation, awful attitude, awful. And so the notion that they're getting paid makes a lot of people salty because really what should happen is actual independent, non-mainstream, actual journalists, like not these curating presenters, but actual little journalists. Those are the ones who should have been funded to bring them up to speed, to give them the quality of the large media outlets. And large media outlets, I mean, who cares? They have the funding and they're not dumb. They can figure it all out. They can hire people who can teach them. YouTube shouldn't be paying them of anything. They should be paying like, well, they shouldn't be paying anyone really. I mean,
Well, they were paying. I know they I know they paid Hollywood actors to do videos for YouTubes and such after they gave more money to creators to produce their own shows for YouTube Red,
oh,
and that was, I wouldn't say it was a huge, it wasn't a great success, but it wasn't a huge failure either.
so they're like trying to do a Netflixy thing for YouTube Red?
Yeah, that was a while ago, and then when that flopped, they handed, the biggest example I can think of is Will Smith, and he's done stuff on YouTube since, or he still
Yeah.
is.
Well, he's a nobody, and they decided to just like install him in one of these YouTube is awesome, here is why, and here's all the stuff that nobody cares about that happened in the last year, all the while ignoring all the actual big names in YouTube. It was a very, as far as I can tell, every single one of those yearly celebration things that YouTube does is a disaster, an
Oh yeah,
absolute
a lot
disaster.
of people that I've seen just say no, straight up no.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire. And you can go to these things. It's look at the number of downvotes. I'm really surprised that YouTube has the. I don't know how to explain it, man. Why would they allow votes? At least have them visible. Why would they allow comments? It's one of these circumstances where somebody somewhere thought all of this was actually a good idea. They are so disrespectful to their actual user base, and they've always been that way. All of their decisions, all of their communication, all of everything everywhere is the most clueless, stupid stuff. And and that's the thing. They were never cool. They were never cool. YouTube, the original YouTube, maybe had a chance, but as soon as they got bought by Google, they were already bad right away. And I was there. I was there right from the beginning. And
You saw the Welcome to the Zoo video?
oh my God, I didn't see that. No,
Liars, so you weren't there from the beginning.
no, I was not. Okay, so that's not literal, but pre 2003 or pre Google purchase, and I've seen what Google's done to chip away at everything that was good, everything that would make communication possible. They killed response videos. They killed annotations. They killed the ability to direct message creators. They're going to
I thought
kill.
annotations were still.
No, they were removed.
Oh, the blue, pink. Oh, the colored thing. Oh, okay,
The
okay.
little like
That.
overlay
Yeah, that's been
that's been gone for a
replaced
while.
by the bubble thing.
Yeah, yeah, where you can like have these cards that are up with a video thumbnail for, or the
Yeah.
little like eye with the little link that
Yeah,
appears.
that.
Yeah, but they don't have the arbitrary text that a video author can just create. YouTube is going to take away. There's not that anybody really uses it, and I would never use it, but there are like I think it's called a community. So if you go to some authors, if you go to like their home page, not the videos tab, but there's a home tab, and there one of those tabs I think is community, where you've got just like threaded posts. I'm not sure. I don't understand why YouTube has such an awful commenting system. And this is the revised. Like YouTube has a rework that's in. Not many people care. If they're a creator, they will have seen it. If you're a regular user, maybe if you're using certain web browsers, you know YouTube just stinks right now. They did that on purpose. They want to sell Chrome. Not sell with money, but they want to own the market and push out all these other people. And at any rate, I've seen this history of the Google end of things, so the Alphabet Incorporated set of things, just kind of chew through YouTube little by little. They are not cool. They're not in touch. They don't know what they're doing. And they're hiring more and more people that are just, their their brains don't work right. And so they're interacting with some audience that they presume exists. And the actual bulk of users who are active and vocal don't respond well to any of the anything. And this isn't even getting into all the weird advertising stuff that Google has had to deal with. And oh man, there's okay, so there are like for realsies lawyers who have looked through YouTube's legal stuff, and one that comes to mind is he actually went through like the law of the United States to examine exactly what YouTube was thinking when they implemented the recent. So there's a system where, for those out there listening who are actual creators on YouTube, they'll understand this new mechanism where you have the ability to set your channel to be uh, directed for children, or you can do it individually per video to say that this particular video is directed at minors. I think I think it's under 13 or 13 and under is what is considered, and that's because there's
The
a
COPPA Act.
yeah, that's because there's a mechanism in US law that got directed to YouTube, and YouTube was kind of forced into like cooperation. But the thing is, YouTube implemented it wrong on purpose, because there are protectionisms built into that law that just let a developer, like let a host have have certain exceptions in place, and they don't have, if I can remember the mechanism properly, because it isn't a yes no. Well, it's a yes no maybe kind of thing, and they left one of the choices out, and so authors are forced into this really weird situation where they can't know if youth might see their stuff. They can't control that. They can't know. And there's a mechanism in the actual United States law that says, but under circumstances where there might be visibility to minors, this exception applies explicitly. It's explicitly in the law, and YouTube would have an exception to it. So all the video authors, they have the ability to say that yes, that their stuff is directed, and then there would be certain extra legal considerations for the content creator, well, it's not even the content creator, but it's for the controller of the YouTube channel, for them to flag it and for them to be mechanisms that occur. But there's an I don't know or not my problem, like the shrug, the default, which means the channel's just exempt. So if there happens to be youth that see their channel, there happens to be youth. It's not their problem. It's not even YouTube's problem. It's an exception.
The argument against that is YouTube themselves have an app for children called YouTube
Hmm.
Kids,
Well,
which
but and they've got like a restricted mode and some other stuff like that, right?
that is the restrictive mode.
Well, okay, but there's a mode where there's some really weird stuff that YouTube implemented because they're out of touch. Like if you're viewing YouTube on a TV, um, you're not necessarily logged in. A lot of people just don't bother logging in because they're not voting or they're not commenting, so they don't care, and they just don't have access to certain kinds of videos because they're walled off. And they're some of them are, but not all of them, but some of them are walled off because of the age gating stuff. And
Yeah, it's, if you're not logged in, you're age restricted. I tried watching a few games, not uh, an Xbox stream and a PlayStation stream, reveal stream, but they were both age gated.
really, so
Yeah, but if you watch not any other third parties on any other channel covering their streams,
well, yeah.
it's not.
So basically, the PlayStation people went like, we're not risking this. We're calling it for adults, kind of thing, and they gated it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the 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 problem with all of that is YouTube didn't need to have these mechanisms in place because they had an explicit exception. They just chose to not implement it technically, do the technical implementation. For what reason? Shrug. Like, I, I don't know. They don't know what they're
This
doing.
place is great.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going on. So, and it's stuff like that that just creates a rift between the owner of the platform and the the producers, the people who create content for them more or less for free, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, the relationship is a little weird, but considering how important that relationship is, YouTube is really out of touch and really not providing for, really not thinking about the success or the morale of their creators or even their just everyday. I mean, I'm not an everyday user, but it's not just everyday, because what's an everyday user? They don't vote, they don't comment, right? That experience is a little bit weird. Like the everyday person might not really have very many subscriptions or. So yeah, let's move to some other topic. I know it's going to be a really weird one. So we've talked about water so many times. It is tiring. So we've moved to glass bottles and a different water cooler. Okay. So Minion, what is your sense of that? Have you had much of that water? Are you enjoying it?
I could have swore last cup I had 2 days ago, it's strange. It had a strange taste, but could be me.
Okay. Same with me. And I poured a big mug of it, and it sat here for a few days, and I sipped it a couple times, and it's absolutely awful. So I earlier today I had some. I was careful about it. I had first thing in the morning, so I didn't have some weird food thing happening in my mouth, because if I ate certain foods, it would do certain things to my sense of taste or smell or something, and that might influence drinking water. But no. So this was first thing in the morning, and it was fine. It was fine. But the water that I still had on the counter, like I drank that. I came down to this cup that I had sitting out overnight, drank that. It was terrible, and it was from a few days ago. And before anybody gets weird about it, I've not had bacteria issues in a glass that's been sitting out for a couple of days. It's not a good habit. I should be drinking it. That's kind of why I have this big mug out there. So I don't, and this is the same bottle of water that we've just been, it's like the first batch of it, the first volume of it was bad somehow. The only thing I can think of is like that, oh, what do we call it? That container, that fountain thing, that dispenser. What's it called? It has, so it's got two button pressy thingy things, and one of them is funny and has a red lock on it, so it's annoying to actually depress. Is it like a hot water thing or what's?
Yeah, it's for hot water.
So, and it's not plugged in or anything like that. So, what's the other side? Does it do cold water? Is it refrigerated or something like that?
It's yeah. Uh, if it if that machine was plugged, if the dispenser was plugged in and the switches at the back were turned on, one would be for hot water and the other one would be for cold
Oh,
water.
and they're like two switches to make hot water enabled and cold water enabled,
Yeah.
and neither. Well, it's not even plugged in. So, I wonder if that means that there are two reservoirs internally, where
It's the exact same one. Or it's in one, but they're connected a bit differently, for lack of a better word.
okay, so does it heat it as it's first pouring it out, or does it have like a little keep it hot, like the Keurig coffee maker thing, where it kind of keeps it hot
It
inside?
has a reservoir and keeps it hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and our old one had just cold, and it did that too. It had a space where it kept some stuff, and then took some time to refrigerate it. And so I'm the only thing I can think of is there's some volume of water that was in there that somehow was poisoned by the walls of that storage space. And so the first X amount of cups of whatever were all nasty. But I don't see how that's doable, how that's possible. Like if because I flushed out personally, and I flushed
Wait,
out.
did you do? How did you flush it? Just by holding onto the taps?
Um, well, yes, just tap water and then pitchers of it, and so pitcher filling it out and then pressing the button and then discarding that water,
Oh,
as opposed to
there, there's a. So you didn't do a complete drain then.
I don't know what that means. I press the button until
So
it stops giving me water.
at the back, at the lower end, there's a. If you want to completely empty out, you take off a screw and then the cap, and then you just let it flow
Well,
out.
how am I supposed to know that? So no, I didn't do that. Okay, well, so the only thing I can think of is that the extra flushing little water left over was what? From some previous nasty bottle of water that we had before?
I made it. I made sure it was completely drained before I moved it because I had to
Well,
set it on its side.
yeah. Okay, so that's still really confusing, right? So, I mean, the bottle of water that's had on it is the best bottle of water we have had so far, and so it hasn't introduced any poisons. So, what the what the heck? What is going on? Now, I brought all that up because I thought I was going mental. I'm pretty sure there is a relationship between my sense of taste and my mood. And it's the weirdest thing. And I'm linking it toward the irritability. Specifically, so it's like diet leading to irritability, leading to my sense of taste getting messed up. And because I've noticed this stuff kind of peripherally connected before in the past a couple of times. And this is why I keep asking other people, like, does this water taste funny? Because I'm trying to figure out, like, am I going mad? Is this a thing that's just me? Is it the bottle of water? Is it the water? Is it the cooler? Is it like what's going on? Which is why I keep asking, like, you, like, is the water okay? And you tell me, well, a couple of days ago, and now it's fine. It's like, okay, same with me. Okay, I'm still not sure. I'm not going to do experiments with that because I'm not going to expose myself to circumstances that are going to make me angry.
What I want to do now, since it's either we'll remove the remove the glass, remove the glass jug, do a complete drain, take out the thing from the back, plug the jug back in, let it fill up, and then do a drain again.
If you want. So we're doing the drain with that really awesome water. Um, I'm
I'd rather not let any more tap water get into there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, and because
And then if that water is bad, I think I'll just go back to, I'll just go to grocery stores and fill it up.
I suppose I don't like the idea of going to grocery stores anymore because reasons, right? I mean, Canada's doing great, but right. So it's one less thing. Like I am still in the next few days, I'll make a decision. It turns out to not be very expensive to get a little device that will do the I can't remember. Man, I used to be all about the science, but I can't remember what it is. The boiling the water and recondensing it. You get these like they're like kettles and they take forever and ever, but I could have a pot of pure water created out of tap water, and I could just have that like on the side as soon as I clean my like this. As soon as I clean my little office a little bit better, and I have like if you're going to plug something in and it's electric and it's going to generate heat, make sure the area is clear, make sure it's on a stable surface, all this kind of stuff. I need to do all that. But I'm still thinking of buying one of these things. It is something like 150 Canadian, which is actually pretty reasonable. Like I'm willing to commit to that. And because I'm at the point when it's not that, because you're the one that's dealing with this cooler crap, technically, right? But it's a dependency, right? I don't necessarily want to have a dependency on somebody else's property or somebody else's routine or even a delivery service or something like that, because technically speaking, what I can do is I can just get bottles of water delivered and stuff like that. Like that's all possible, but that's relying on an external service like that when really I shouldn't have to do that anymore. I should have all that internal, not because I'll be saving money, because like I think it's $9 a bottle, $9 for 5 gallons, via a service that delivers versus like 150 for a thing that can make 1 gallon a day. The 150 isn't going to pay for itself. I mean, I'm not going to drink 1 gallon a day, right? So it's not going to pay for itself anytime soon. So it's not about saving money, but it's about like not getting a thing delivered in from the outside, for example. So we've got a lot of protectionism in the household that thinks about contact with the outside, that thinks about contact at grocery stores, even though Minion's not very bright about that. I do not like the idea of delivery, like fresh deliveries. Our post is really good, and I'm still careful about a lot of that stuff. But if the contents of a cardboard box have been sitting, quote unquote, sitting for days, so the contents are safe, and the box itself just needs 8 hours or whatever the heck, and that's good. I need to brush up on my current knowledge because apparently all the knowledge is being rewritten. So we're going to have like good truth that's coming in. I'm not sure. Our Canadian government is a little bit awkward about a lot of this stuff. So it's like we have, so we're going to have a lot of American listeners. So we have much the same arrangement in that we've got a federal government that does certain things, that knows certain things, and we've got provincial government, and it's the correct way. So the correct way for the United States is it's the United States. It's the states which are united. So the presidency and the federal government shouldn't be doing much of anything ever for any reason. That's kind of, it's there for other weird reasons. Any problems like an emergency always gets pushed down to the federal level, from the federal level to the state level. And so, I mean, whatever things happen in the United States, you first look at the state. You don't look at the presidency, which is why things are really hilarious to look at as a Canadian, because that's the correct thing to do, right? You want to make sure that everything is handled appropriate to the wills of the local people, not necessarily with the oppression from the government at the federal level, although they're in charge of doing things like halting international flights from certain places and stuff like that. Anyhow, Canada's a little bit funny about a lot of stuff. They pushed a lot of stuff to the provincial level, which is the correct thing to do, and the provincial level has a bunch of mandates and stuff like that, but there's a lot of stuff that's city level. But things are really weirdly communicated, like, you can get an app or do stuff on a website, and it's like, hey, maybe you should go and get tested. Here is where you can, and it'll give you a link, and you click the link, and it's broken. It's like, thanks, Canada. So you have to hunt around at your provincial level resources, and the provincial level resources have like awkward maps and stuff like that, and then you have to kind of look stuff, and you're like, oh man, I'm just gonna ask Google. Clickety click. All you're gonna get is local news talking about other random stuff, and it's just like, okay, pick up the phone, 811. We've got one phone number for the entire country where anybody can call 24/7, and there will be a human being. And we really have that many support staff for that phone number, to answer questions, to be pointed in the right directions, to get advice. I mean, I call them. I'm like, I'm feeling really chilly for some reason. That is very strange for me. And they're like, no, we're looking for these particular symptoms at this moment, and that's not one of them. You're cool. Like the kind of keep an eye on it, sort of like, not like keep calm, citizen, and carry on kind of thing. Just kind of pushing me away. But I had a person to talk to, and they're not useless people. They're not telemarketers. This is not some sort of like call center in what would be a strange place. Like the joke is call center in India, right? But for Canada, it would be a call center in like Newfoundland, because I think Newfoundland has a huge call center type stuff happening there. Other than that, it would be like Scotland, which is also really that got hit really hard, as I understand, last year sometime, with a lot of people losing their jobs. At any rate, we're going to come up on a break, and I'm going to talk about something a little bit less depressing. I'll talk about my curtains, or I'll talk about a video game. So we're going to be back in about 11 minutes at this point. I'll see you guys real soon.
Okay, I see. I can see why the mic thing's gonna get annoying.
Explain.
I don't hear it, but I could see from OBS the audio thing, the audio indicator, and on Audacity.
Yeah, so let's talk about that right now, because I have to go through every time you talk, and I have to clean up all the space in between. And I'm going to be pushing that off onto you. You're going to eat your own dog food, and I'm going to teach you how to do the audio editing, beginning with your crap, so that before you hand it to me, you have done the post-production. So you've done the noise removal, the compression, the high-pass filter, the equalizer, the et cetera, and you're going to have to go through, and every time you chew on your mic, you're going to have to go back, and I'll show you how you can see these things. And it's actually, I mean, it is as annoying as it sounds. Yeah, and you wonder why it takes me 5 hours per show to actually go through this stuff. And it's become harder now that we're recording 2 separate tracks, because it's double the work, kind of. So it's a challenge. So I do want to move all this stuff over to you. And so we can spend some time, like you were saying. I mean, we can talk about more of this between, like, we can talk about more of this third segment, but you wanted to talk about like an intro and stuff like that. Well, maybe we can work on that today, but tomorrow or something, we can. I can teach you how to do the audio engineering. I know I'm doing it wrong. It's better. It's better than nothing. And I don't understand certain things, but the audio that's coming out seems like the most recent show kind of stinks. I don't know why, but my audio, I mean, it is what it is. So I do want to move all that stuff over to your responsibility. And I would what I think I would rather do is I would rather do the archivism of going through and keeping all the records and files properly, because I don't understand how stuff goes missing. So I need to get the folder of stuff that we have been preparing, and I need to audit everything from scratch and make sure it's all in good shape and everything that I expect. And you have been performing the dumbest way of doing backups, so that disaster I cannot abide by that. So we're going to be kind of trading roles, I think. So you're performing backups. So you've got multiple hard drives because you have your own separate backup drive in your system. Are you doing it do you have a completely separate device just for this show for doing backups? I'm not talking about the portable drive.
No.
Okay, so you're doing it for all kinds of other stuff, and it just happens.
Yes.
It just happens to have a directory with this. Okay, so what I may do is buy a separate hard drive in my system, and I will keep that stuff. I'll keep the backups. So we would have, I mean, what's the plan really for keeping backups? Really, we don't need that portable hard drive for one set of everything. We only need it for transferring what's immediately important. Because it's 4 terabytes. Like a 4 terabyte 2.5-inch drive is pretty impressive, and we will be able to fit a lot of stuff on there. But we can replace it with an SSD, and then your dock doesn't need to have its own power brick, which is actually kind of handy to have less wires. So I've been thinking about doing that. So where I got derailed there. So there are some improvements to workflow which could be made, like that drive could be turned into a backup drive instead of being used like this. It's a bit of a waste because it's a portable drive. Okay, so I could get a desktop hard drive, but the thing is, it would require two. It would require one main hard drive and then a backup hard drive. So you want to have a backup of everything. So right now, I actually don't know how much hard drive space is being taken up by that portable drive. This is all boring administrivia stuff, which we can get into at another time. Anyhow, let's first. I had brought it up before, where we need break music, and we need break music because it's a good motivator for me when I'm sitting. I'll put on my headphones and I'll listen to some music and get back into the show mood between breaks. Or during a break. So that break music is really important, and you can include it in a scene change, and you need to do that. Like, add that to your to-do list, and then do your to-do list. That's what it's there for. So can you note that? Can you do that?
Yes.
Hooray. Okay. So, and that's a help for me, because it music will make me happy if it's decent.
Oh. If it's decent.
Well,
I was looking happy. It's like, music will make me happy. Okay, let's find the most off-putting music ever. If it's decent.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll put in boring stuff. Yeah, well, no.
Put in some trippy, offbeat music.
Anything with too much bass will piss me off, so you're aware. So that kind of goes into this other problem, which is some time ago. So there's a concept called a landmine when you're thinking about to-dos. It is generally used for the physical world, where you have an object and you place it kind of in the way so that you trip over it, you step on it, it's there, it's aggravating, and it's meant to explode and tell you to do something, right? So if, for example, you've got garbage day coming up, right? Garbage day coming up tomorrow morning, and it's the evening. You would take your kitchen garbage, you would tie the bag up, and you put it at the not at the top of the stairs, because that's just asking for somebody to trip over it and fall down the stairs. Which, no, no. And so you would put it, around the corner, nearish the stairs. And then the next morning, you're getting up, you're puttering around. It's there. It's there, and you had to step around it. And you'll notice it. You'll be, oh, it's garbage day. And you'll take that bag out, and you'll haul it. So it depends on how your trash removal works, but you'll take your garbage bin up to the road or something, right? And you would not forget any of that because you put something in the way. It reminds you of the entire chain of stuff. And there's a version of that where when you are performing actions, there will be some thing that that you realize hasn't been done yet. And that's the moment when you would put it on a to-do list. So it's not quite like a landmine. So for example, the break happened, and the break happened without music, and I noticed it, and then I mentioned it. That's the opportunity. So it was kind of like a landmine. It was an obvious thing, and now it needs to go into, you don't wait, you don't try to remember it, you put that into a to-do list, you prioritize it, or however you work, and then you work on it. So I don't know that there is an Apple version, but there's a to-do, it's called to-do.txt, is a text format. It's a text markup language for creating to-do lists. And I had been playing with a version of it on Android, and it's pretty and it's colorful. And I tried a different programs for this, and I just use it for like grocery shopping. I don't really care. But to-do lists are in text files is an old concept, right? And there's a bunch of different ways of managing thinking and managing planning and stuff like that I've gone through that. But it all comes down to you noticing a thing and actually committing it into a system of some sort. So right now, Minion, you probably have a text file where you just pull it open and you dump stuff in. And that's the correct way to begin. But really what you should do is try to give it a priority right away, which usually is like pushing it into the top of the list or the bottom of the list or whatever. And that's probably good enough. So the other thing I wanted to mention about landmines is it sounds weird. Okay, so let's say that you've got like your desk and stuff, your environment is all in one room, all in a bedroom, and you use the landmine idea and you respond to it, and you take an object. So let me look around. Okay, so I've got the empty box for something that I'll talk about later. So I've got an empty box, and what I did is I put it in a corner. It needs to be taken apart so it can be recycled. So I want to pull it open and cut it apart and flatten it, kind of thing. So I can make a thick pile of them. It's like you have to flatten your boxes, and if you've got enough of them, I do a lot of Amazon stuff in particular. And so I need to pack it all into a recycling bin. So I need to do that. So I have this box, and it's a landmine. It's sitting in my room. The problem is I'll walk past that day after day after day, and it becomes a reminder. It doesn't explode. It's just kind of there, and I step around it. And a lot of people will drop something somewhere and it just becomes part of the clutter of their life. And some other list somewhere has to say clean your room, has to say whatever, when you will get around to, and it's just the objects on your floor become to-do items. They aren't proper landmines. The correct approach for a landmine is to let yourself be aggravated every time you see it. And to be like, oh, I'll just deal with this right now. Man, can just get this out of the way. Just this is really fast. This thing has been bugging me. And find the correct words and the correct attitude to just be like, well, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to do this I'm going to do this during the break. I'm going to pull it apart right now. I'm going to write and some people are a little bit awkward with it, and maybe you'll just shift it to the correct room that something is supposed to be in, and at least that's a start. But then the next time you enter into that room, it's a landmine. You have to respect it as that, and you're like, now you're in room B mode. Like if it's a landmine in your living room, the next time you go into your living room, deal with that. Deal with that right away. And I've had a problem with demoting landmines into nuisances, into reminders. And what it's done is it's left a ridiculous clutter around everything everywhere. Everywhere I go is just, there's the type where they know where everything is, but everything is everywhere. They're quote unquote organized piles. They're kind of like archaeology layers, and all the piles of stuff are based around when that pile was last worked on, and that's all in the memory of the creator of those piles. No, don't help clean up. I know where everything is. If you clean up, I don't know where anything is anymore. Because all the memory cues are based on that timeline of interacting with these different spots, these different piles. And that's kind of what my life will turn into if I let it. And I have let it. And I'm at the point where we brought over a steam carpet cleaner, and I'm going to use it. So I've already had on my list clean my floor, pick everything up off my floor. There's an old expression called "pick up the floor," which it makes no sense in English because it's one of these foreign sayings. But I try to remember dumb things like that. So I need to pick up my floor, and part of that is so this flows nicely into something really dumb. So the box I mentioned is actually for a curtain rod. But it's a weird kind of curtain rod. And I wasn't convinced it would be any good because it acts very much like one of these spring-loaded pressure bars used for shower curtains. And so it acts like that. And what it's meant to do is it's meant to pin itself on two walls, on two walls in like a room. And you can hang stuff off of it. Just arbitrarily stuff. And I'm wondering if I could turn one into because I've got one space where if I get one, I can...
Couldn't you use it as a green screen?
Well, yes and no. See, it depends on the angle of a room. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I could use it as the heck are they called in a closet with the bar? Well, the clothes hanger bars, whatever they are. There's my brain. Or in another case, very similar to what you mentioned, Minion, is I've got a side of my room where there's a kind of a structure that would normally have been built into a closet, but it's a very awkward space, and it was never done up as a closet. So it's just this gap, and the space, so that the office that I'm sitting in right now is kind of like converted into a library, where previously it was like it was like a second little entertainment room, and there used to be a TV over there. So it's like a little cubby hole that would have whatever stereo equipment, and there's actually stereo wiring and stuff like that going through the walls. That it's not hooked up to anything anymore because I just put this computer. I might turn it into a more recording stuff, but there's a section of the room that's got shelves and just books, and it's not presentable. And cameras tend to these days be sold with wide angle lenses, which is the dumbest thing. Like I want 90 degrees, but the one I got is, I think it's 130, and it just really captures all the room, which is bad. And I use features to zoom in. And so I've got a chunk of the room that's messy that wouldn't work on camera. So I might get one of these tension bars, and you can get them quite long, and I can kind of cover that part of the room. And the real trick there would be getting a curtain that looks good. So I found like a massive single panel curtain that would just be, and just the color and the texture is beautiful. So it would work really well. I don't know how well it would work because I can't really tell until you see it. Pardon me. But Minion, you brought up an interesting idea. So green screen. So right now the way my computer is set up, so my webcam, it's on the long side of the room. And the reason it's there is for all kinds of reasons. Like I can't put it on one side because I got a cubby hole with all kinds of books. I mean, I could kind of figure it out, but then I get the glare from the window, which would be behind me. And so I could close the curtains, which kills the lighting, but I could do that. And if I moved the desk the other way, it would be in front of the window, which I'd have sunlight glaring in my face, which would stink at certain times of day. But again, I can close the curtains, and right now with the tension bar up there, man, do these curtains look incredible. They're exactly what I originally intended for that section of the room, which is to create this one continuous wall effect with the set of curtains. Yeah, it looks great. So I'm wondering, it might make the room oppressively small if I do it to both sides of the room. At any rate, so what turns out to be the case with this camera setup is behind me is a fireplace with a mantle with all my books, and it looks really nice, I think. I don't know how to pull apart the fireplace, so it's an actual fireplace. It's a gas fireplace, and it's got one of these glass panels on front. And technically, you could unscrew it in order to pull out the glass to clean the inside, because the inside's got soot or whatever the heck happens over the years, right? It's been used every single winter for years and years, and it's never been cleaned. And when I went to look at all the screws to unscrew it, I got down to the last one, and it's stripped and it's rusted in. So I don't know what to do with that. I know there's products and I know there's techniques and stuff like that, but I haven't investigated that. So like right now, the view is imperfect, but it's pretty good. It's really applicable to like, hey, it's a writer talking, and I've got, I'm totally legit. See, I've got books. I haven't read most of the ones that are behind me because that's kind of like my to-do pile. As I'll have it lined up because it's my landmine, so to speak, right? It's a row of books that are the quote unquote English classics, right? And in this case, it's every time I talk about this, I need to turn around and actually look at what the books are. What are they? Man, I should have my glasses on. Anyway, at any rate, you will have heard of some of the authors, and they're important for me to read, but I haven't. And so putting a green screen across there would require a pole the length of the room, right? And most of these green screens aren't really designed as curtains. What they are is you would get a frame, so kind of like a sea sheep. What you would get. What? Hello?
You said sheep.
A C-shaped bar, like a pair of poles with a thing on top, and you would hang, or there would be clips for the green screen sheet, and they're moderately expensive, but what they're designed to do is I only need the width and height of my webcam's viewing area. And it's the old joke, like people are doing their home office work Skype call or whatever, and they're wearing a suit but no pants. It's that kind of thing. You need to green screen only a certain amount of the background. But of course, we were talking about recently the automation, so it's the software side of things that's able to examine the background and to distinguish background from the person and do an auto green screen without there actually being a green screen back there. And maybe just that's the solution. And instead of sinking, like $200 in green screening and all this other stuff, I'd sync that into the software, the video card, or the whatever the heck, right? So that would essentially reduce the price of that video card by the green screen cost, right? So if you're you're looking.
Well, wouldn't it just fall under production costs?
Well, you mean getting a video card or the background stuff?
Like you could say, let's say someone had not a budget, but, or I guess you could say it's a budget, but over time it turned into I had to buy this, this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
and that.
Well, this happens
But
in
then,
businesses, yeah. Okay, so you're talking about business expenses. That's the notion?
sure, I've
Okay.
never had a hand in, so I can't say.
Okay.
But
So,
thanks to that video card, it cuts down on. Well, I could have bought it since I saw that Nvidia had since I saw their software can essentially do this. I don't need to buy green screen anymore.
right. Okay, so so this is going to be weird for some people, for some places. So in Canada, at least, we've got the notion of businesses and business expenses and taxes and tax rebates, depending on, because taxation would work differently if something is spent by a citizen for the business. And so it's if I go to lunch and I bring a client to lunch and it's a business lunch, air quotes, it's a business lunch, I would keep the receipt, like tipping and everything. I would keep the receipt, and I would take that with all of the other such things, and I would give it to in my case, I would give it to my accountant, and the accountant would look at those expenses, and the government has a reduction of taxes owed based on those sorts of business expenses, depending on what class of stuff it is. So in that sort of sense, I could write down, equipment for the business for the green screening stuff, because it's physical stuff, and I could keep the receipts for it and note the values, and I could give that to my accountant, and some percentage of that would go towards a rebate of my taxes owed for the income for the business kind of thing. There's taxes owed on that. Okay, so I can do all that, but I was thinking more psychologically, right? So there's a version of that where I would say that this video card is a business expense, and I would take the entire video card and make that as a business expense. And so, for example, in the past with my own business stuff, I did buy a computer. I've done this more than once, right? And the computer was for work. I happen to play video games on it in my off hours, right? The business day ends, I'm done, right? I'm there kind of, if you've got your own business, or if you're part of a small business, you're kind of on call 24/7. So I might be on call, but it's after official hours, and so I play World of Warcraft or something like that, right? Back in the day when my regular computer was so awful, and the game engine wasn't very. It was great. It became way better fairly recently, but So, 4 frames a second kind of thing. So I play at work. But the work computer cost thousands of dollars, right? But the work computer contributed toward a so these things contribute towards a tax rebate. Okay. Now, but I was thinking psychologically. So psychologically speaking, I have a problem. I have my own personal budget because right now there's no concept of a business associated with any of this. Okay, so I have my own personal budget and I can think to myself, well, it would be really good if I had a video card, but I don't actually need one. Like you need one, Minion. You're talking about that. You have justified it. You have good reason to have it. There's a great opportunity that's out there. You're probably not going to find one because apparently there are memes about trying to buy these cards that they just don't exist anymore. But
Yeah, I saw reports where within not even 3 minutes they were all gone. Yay, bots!
yeah, actually, I had looked into the auto bidding bots and stuff like that, and so people are making like joke eBay listings with like, this is a $38,000 card. And it's like just a drawing of the card. It's like authentic drawing of 3080 GTX.
Oh, jeez.
People selling rolls of toilet paper. And it's like collector's edition. I don't know if they're real listings. I'm not going to bother looking. I want to believe. But these are
They
just me.
probably are, and whoever has the lowest, people would go for the lowest and such.
Well, but these aren't real cards, right?
Or
It's.
not the real, not the fake ones, but there are real ones on the
Oh
market.
yeah, I've heard that there are some real ones on the market that are just going for some astronomical price, and it's probably
Yeah.
just friends are bidding it up, the kind of thing. And maybe you'll get a bite from some rich person who just goes, I don't care, whatever. It costs $5,000. I want it, done. And
Yeah.
I don't understand that attitude, but once you get super wealthy, it's somebody else making the purchase for you. You're like, get me a new computer. I don't know what's a good computer these days, like 20,000. Here's a budget. I don't know. You deal with it, and like the rest goes into that shopper's pocket kind of thing. But whatever, right? So they'll go out and buy this kind of ridiculous stuff. These are the people that pay the $25 shipping on the $5 item, right? They exist. That's their thing. It looks ridiculous to you and I, but it happens. So these listings, they might very rarely get a bite, but that very rarely makes it worth listing and maybe even paying the listing fee because you have to pay eBay to begin the bidding at a certain amount.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you come up positive, that's all that matters.
Yeah, basically. And what some of these guys do is, and of course it's against the rules, is you start your bidding at zero. You have a legitimate item. You would lose the entire value of the item if you sold it for $1. So what you do, most of the time that won't happen, right? So you'll get some random people out there. But let's say you want to run a con. Is you take your item, you list it at zero. Okay, then you have your friend bid it up, then you have your other friend bid it up to like, the market value, and then you have your third friend bid it up a little bit more. So right now, what you've done is you've lined things up so that if a non-friend comes in and bids just to like a penny more or whatever, however it works, you're making a profit because your friend bid it up to where you're profitable. So that's how things normally work. And there are certain circumstances where you'll have a scalper community bid up one another in order to get it to a certain height. And then they're hoping that some outsider will come in and bid and see all the activity and be like, I want to get in on this. And as soon as that happens, suddenly nobody else bids. So this person's buying an $800 card for $5,000, right? But they bid that, so it's legit. But all the other bidders were all frauds. And what would have happened is if no foreigner or no non-participant got involved, the bidding would have been won by a friend. The transaction would have occurred. They would have done a backroom deal where the item isn't shipped, or like an empty box is shipped. right, for tracking purposes or whatever. And I've heard stories like you ship rocks or something like that for the equivalent weight or whatever the heck, and then the money is like returned or something because these are your friends in the community, right? So you see, or it's the same person's second account or something like that, and this stuff is out there. It's happening now, and people that aren't familiar with this problem are now seeing it live, right? They're seeing it live. This is not surprising in the least. Like I mentioned before, I was hoping that the company, that NVIDIA, would have made enough to make bank and then kind of squeak on by so that they can have production at kind of a stable amount. And they create that rarity. That there's a supply problem where they create a rarity. But the reason that it would be a smart thing to do is because they don't know what the value of the dollar is going to be, given that the economics in the world is unknowable at this moment. And the price of production or the parts or whatever might make it so because I understand a little bit of the electronic side of things, so the business and the electronic side of things, they've got a card, and the card has many components, and the components are made in many different places, and often they have deals with different companies. Now, the dream is that they own all those companies, but they don't. Okay, so they have like subcontractors, so to speak, that make all these parts, and they often have a supply of some of the parts. And building cards has a bottleneck for some of these other parts, and that what the bottlenecks are is going to change depending on how those businesses are producing their stuff, because they're often serving multiple companies for different kinds of chips and stuff like that. And a smart company will try to do everything as in-house as possible and will make sure that those manufacturers only have them as their sole contract. Stuff like this, like Apple tends to be like that. And so what for a video card, it might have all kinds of parts scattered everywhere. And in uncertain economic times, the problem is if certain values shift around, you might have a stockpile over there that they need to get fulfilled. There's a promise over there, but the costs went up for that manufacturer because of economic instability. And so now the price of the card has to change, or there are supply problems with certain parts because there's scarcity issues because of money. Things get odd, and the things can get odd spread across all of these different components. So NVIDIA has this weird problem where, well, do they manufacture everything up front and just have a stockpile? And then the stockpile might value or devalue depending on the market. Or like, do they make a lot of stuff up front and hope they sell it all? They will. Do they have the manufacturer constant across all of these different companies and hope their relationships all stay the same? That they're all honest actors and they're all going to fulfill their bids, their contracts. Do they pay everything up front? Do they wait for delivery? Will the costs change? And now their promises for card costs have to change, and like all this weird stuff can happen. And so I wasn't sure what would happen with their cards because I wasn't sure how many they would make. Apparently they were really dumb, like really spectacularly. I don't know. So they didn't make enough. Okay. Now, what I'm wondering right out the gate, because I wondered before, is how effective are these cards at displacing what exists for power performance for doing cryptocurrency mining? Because a lot of that stuff is out there, is being used like that. And actually, I want to take a small break right away. Something came up. So Minion, can you switch to our break timer? I'll come back early. I'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll continue that. I'm back if you want to continue.
Okay.
That was some terrible nausea. Sorry about that. Maybe I'm pregnant. It could happen.
No. Without. So one of the shows I was watching.
We probably don't want to go there.
Fine.
Before we migrate away from the video card topic, I want to talk about something I had been meaning to talk about this ever since we originally brought it up. And one of the breakthroughs, okay, you know, they give you bigger numbers. It's a new video card, blah, 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 blah. And it's all the traditional numbers. And the one thing that really piqued my interest is they were talking about video card memory speed, memory breakthroughs. And the thing about video card memory is a look to the future of regular desktop memory. And desktop memory tends to be a good solid generation or two behind what's on video cards. And it's not a price issue, it's not a rarity issue, it's just technologically speaking, stuff gets cooked into video cards. It's right on the bare metal, right next to where all the processing happens, and we don't have that closeness on the motherboard near the CPU. There's another category of memory called L1, L2 that is baked into the actual chip itself, or the package. And the actual sticks of memory that you have, you know, the sticks that gives you, 4, 8, 16 gigs of memory, this kind of stuff, okay? That stuff is separate. The discrete sticks are separate enough that you're not going to get the cutting edge of what's doable on video cards, okay? Now, the video card memory they've got now is trinary. Okay, now trinary memory is a concept that had been theorized since the beginning that wasn't possible due to, how do I put it? Let me cough quick. Oh, I'm going to have to edit that out of my stuff. Maybe I should have muted my mic physically. Oops. Okay, so trinary memory had never been possible until now, because the kind of fine resolution necessary was impossible, like completely, utterly impossible to do it all, and then later to do it and reproduce it as a consumer manufactured retailable thing. It just wasn't possible. So it was done. Now what trinary memory is normally, so what we have now is binary memory. So we have 0 and 1. And what 0 and 1 means is 0 doesn't mean no electricity. Most people will talk about it this way, and it's not totally wrong to say that. It's close enough, whatever. Not a big deal. And so but really what it is it's low voltage. It's just it's not as detectable as 1, which is not full, but more or less up there. There's a threshold where below and above means 0 and 1. This is why there's some accuracy issues and there are quality problems, and there's like error checking and stuff like that exists throughout the hardware and software levels. And things have been good. Like, life has been good. Now, the thing is, 0 and 1 in memory is just that those classes, those zones of how things are measured. Now, trinary is a middle ground. Okay, so there's low, there's middle floating in a range, and there's above that range. So trinary memory is now in the 30, 70, 80, 90 graphics cards. Now, trinary computing, we're not ready for that. There's no aspect of of computing today that is ready for that, even slightly. Not even Linux. And so the hardware, the graphics processor, the actual processing packages are actually capable of wielding that trinary memory. Okay, so it's very specialized hardware that's now capable of doing the number crunching, not just with 0, 1, but 0, 1 to like, I guess you would call it 012, but it's not. It's like the traditional 01 plus 0.5 ish, right? And that possibility opens up, that can be used as a vast speed improvement, like seriously, ridiculously vast. They could use the same number of quote unquote gigabytes of memory, but if it's trinary, the difference in speed is ridiculous, right? It's that extra third more. I'm not going to do the math because it's math, but you can imagine, and there are problems. Okay, so you'd say, well, it's a third. You're getting access to a third more memory, but that doesn't mean a third more speed, because now you have to push that information out into memory and withdraw it and all this kind of stuff, right? So, right, there's more happening there. They've actually upgraded more than to trinary. They have other speed improvements, but that was really impressive to hear. Really impressive, because I'm now wondering how close we're going to get to trinary computers. Now, that's a really fascinating topic to think about. It is a very futurism, science fiction-y thing to think about. I had already read science fiction with this in mind. It was a largely forgettable story that ended with an essay. It was hilarious, but it talked about trinary computing. And the problem is every single piece of software can't comprehend the idea of trinary, and every single piece of hardware and every single CPU, like in the world, can't comprehend trinary. Everything would have to be done from scratch. Nothing would be compatible anymore. We'd have compatibility layers like emulation and stuff like that could create an environment, a wrapper that would allow a slightly slower version of everything to run in it. But really what this trinary computing, it provides an opportunity to begin again, to do things maybe right the second time. And this is the abandonment of all the old methods, all the old processor legacy garbage, and there's a lot of garbage. Getting rid of all these, there's backwards compatibility, on and on. And it is, so for the most common stuff, for the Intel compatible stuff. So this includes AMD. So for all of what we would consider commercial, everyday person stuff, everyday person computers, those chips are built on a legacy that goes so far back that you can run good old-fashioned 8-bit DOS programs on them, more or less, right? Things can be a little bit weird. I haven't done this kind of stuff in a long time, but I had like decent, like solid, good computers running old software. Just boot into that mode, and things, boot off of a floppy drive, right? But you have something that is like 50 times more powerful than the original hardware. It's completely different generations of separation from, at any rate. So there's this legacy stuff that's out there, and the trinary memory would need to be used by processors that understand that stuff, and for it to be addressable as trinary as opposed to binary, the software would have to understand that stuff. And there's an opportunity. The thing is, getting your software to use that trinary isn't easy. There's a really serious set of problems in computer science. Just like there was a set of problems when changing software to be from 32-bit to 64-bit. 64-bit allowed more access to a larger amount of memory. There ended up being some speed issues. 32-bit is technically faster. It's like blowing into a large straw or a small straw and getting the force of wind out. There are certain limitations for how much you can pass. Like there's certain limitations for how much memory you can address with 32-bit versus 64-bit. I'm not sure if these problems were really, because people just walked away from 32-bit more and more because 64 is a bigger number. I happened to do that because more and more of my software was being supported as only 64-bit. So I kind of migrated over there. And Windows 10, I've got Windows 10 64-bit, and so I have limitations there. And anyhow, I'm not much of a Linux guy anymore, so a lot of these concerns go away. But you can't just take Windows and go like, hey, Windows, work on Trinary. Microsoft would have to kind of do a lot of stuff from scratch, and maybe like get their act together during doing all that. And the thing is, I had talked about the disruptive potential of a reduced instruction set, like the ARM platform, right? How that idea would be brought out to laptops, so from phones out into laptops, even to desktops, and how software could be redone to work on ARM, and that's a really difficult feat. But if this new trinary memory technology comes in, well, what is going to address that? What kind of CPU is going to address that? Like, what things have to happen in the hardware world and in the operating system world, in all the APIs, the drivers, the operating system, the software, like what happens for all of that stuff? We're going to have a situation where you're going to learn which of the developers for all the software you like, which developers are alive or not. And you're going to have a bunch of software that's just going to be done. It's gone. So this video card coming out, like what does it mean? Does it mean that NVIDIA is going to get into the market of supplying this memory? I mean, where did they get this memory from? Who's got the patent for it, right? What about the processes? Who owns those companies that have the factories? Who makes it? Like, is this licensed to NVIDIA? If NVIDIA controls this stuff in some manner, how are they gonna are they gonna cut a deal with somebody else? Like, are we gonna see Apple get first to market, and when Apple does their conversion over to ARM, also do trinary memory and just utterly blow everything else away? And for the first time, really, they'll be able to justify the prices of their garbage. Maybe they'll have the magnetic cables and stuff again. Who knows? Like, maybe they'll stop selling their monitor stands separately and stuff like that. So there's
Wasn't there a video about Lewis complaining about them doing it again with their phones, where the charging cables weren't sold together?
Really? Actually, I haven't kept up on him in a long time. I actually, I was interested. So I get interested and stuff happens in the world. So I got interested, and then I went back and I watched every single video he had made from scratch. Which
That's some dedication.
yeah. So every single motherboard video, every single repair video, everything. So I heard all the little tricks, the nuances, the all kinds of stuff. Not that it all stuck, because this is not my interest. This isn't even my hobby. This isn't my job. It's not going to be. But technically speaking, so I'd watch everything again if I wanted to get into it properly. But yeah, but I haven't seen any of his new stuff recently. I mean, okay, I'll take the blame for it, because I actually did call his office up and mention that he ought to kind of curate some of the stuff that's on his channel. Specifically, he had a publicly viewable likes list, which I don't know if most people understand this stuff, but some of the content that you interact with the websites that you use, your social media, some of that is exposed very publicly. Like, why would you want somebody to be able to see what you do and don't watch, or what you like and don't like, or your list of comments or whatnot? That is exposed in some circumstances. So for YouTube, it was fascinating, because he hadn't used it, quote unquote used it in a long time, because his business he was getting busy. But back before things started getting busy, I could look at his list, the list of videos he liked, like, or the list of videos that somebody favorites, for example. You can see that stuff.
Stalker.
Possibly even watch later, right? So I got to see all of his old videos, including the one video that actually prompted him to get into the business in the first place, which is just amazing to be the insider that actually knew where it all came from. It was just brilliant. He later did bring up that the inception of things, that bit of advice, and it was nice to see. But yeah, I haven't kept up, and it's he's so, you know, like, it's the same thing, indie band versus professional band. Like, he's done that. He's now that sort. He's no longer indie. He's no longer particularly interesting to me. He's big, he's moved, he's professional, he's got more staff, he's got all this fancy camera stuff, blah blah blah, right? And it's just not. Ooh, you can really hear that rumbling vehicle outside my window. How nice. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make sure I can cut that audio out. I had a moment, so I can collect that for noise removal. Yeah, it's these people that have these gigantic pickup trucks, but they don't do anything for a living that would require this kind of machine. So it's just obnoxious. At any rate, that's a reasonable pause to get into something else. Minion, did you want to take like an actual break, or are you okay for continuing on? Are you there? Minion. Okay.
I had to go close my window. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so I talked about the curtain stuff already. I'm gonna talk. Okay, how do I get into this?
You pick a topic, you open your mouth, and then
I exhale.
Words out.
Yes, words occur. So I play World of Warcraft. I've mentioned it a bunch of times. This is not exactly a point of pride. I know, like, lots of people play it and all this kind of crap, and it's not necessarily a great game and blah blah blah. But I've played it because I have a really good guild environment. You know, Blizzard, they've recently merged yet again a bunch of quote unquote small servers. So now, like, the server that I'm on is being defecated on by all these bots and all these people from all these other places, and it's just obnoxious now. So it's probably gonna, it's not a good experience. It's really not. But at any rate, I'm there because of the guild that I've got, the guild environment, and so I'm preparing for the next expansion, which is coming up fairly soon. I can't remember when, but I know it's going to absolutely obliterate my ability to study Frisian, so, or work on this podcast even. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We might have to shorten this to 2 hours or something, but I do need to shift a whole lot of effort over to you, Minion. I'm not really sure how that's all going to work out, but it's going to be weird. It's going to be very weird. I'm going to sleep like 3 hours a night for a while. At any rate, so when new content comes out, I'm crazy. I don't use my old characters anymore. I retire them. They are a snapshot in time of old stuff, and then I roll a new one and I play that again. And I learn, maybe I change to play a different kind of character. Maybe I have a different mindset as I'm playing, and I do that from scratch all the way up in time for the next expansion, and then that character steps into that expansion with really none of the baggage of the previous expansions. Okay, so I don't roll over my previous characters, so I have a whole lot of new ones. And I did this one most recently, and here's the thing: I didn't really intend to do this, but for some reason, all I needed to do is roll over my character from one level to just push one extra level in there, And I had a character that got access to teleporting into the next expansion's content. Normally what you would do is you would go through a quest line and you would like learn about all the issues of that expansion and how, oh, hero, come and help, the same old nonsense. And your character would kind of, you the player would be handheld and be brought through the storyline with all the cut scenes and all the, and no, I just decided to go work a little bit harder, get my level, learn how to teleport directly into the expansion, completely bypassing the entire storyline. My character is just there, teleports into an empty expansion with nothing there. Like, oh, well, and so I go exploring because it's weird. And I learned that there's like, so the entire core of the expansion is gone, is not there yet, has not been populated because my character hasn't gone through the storyline. So I haven't met all the correct characters, haven't done all the right stuff. And so I'm going out into the world and I bump into actual like the population of the landscape that like act like regular stuff, that are not tied to the expansion as such. They're background noise. They have their own little individual quests. And so I'm like, oh, well, I wonder if I can do this. So I actually did. It was hard because I had absolutely no rewards. I think I got like 2 minor rewards throughout all of this stuff. Just doing quest after quest after quest, getting nothing but gold, which, I mean, isn't useful because I can't buy anything because there's nobody there. I can't. And so I actually went through the entirety of the expansion and just last night hit maximum, hit cap, so to speak, ready for the next expansion, having a character that has absolutely no idea what happened that entire expansion, which was the most ludicrous feat. And I just decided because I could, I would do this because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go like raiding with it. It's not a real character until I buy the next expansion, until I get into that. And there's a motorcycle. I hate you, motorcycle. Why do people own those things? Don't know. It's makes them feel better. So I have this habit. Blizzard knows me. So I have this habit of examining and breaking everything everywhere, just because it's hilarious sometimes, and sometimes because I wonder if it's even possible. And I tend to think of things that developers, there's a thing with making software where you might test and test and test, but a user brings the kind of stupid that you cannot predict. And so, you have a form and it asks, fill out your age, and the user types the words. And you're like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. And the program doesn't know how to deal with that. And it just kind of dies. And I'm kind of like that for so long that I actually got a reputation from previous, and I'm just going to keep doing stuff like this because it's phenomenally hilariously fun, because there's nothing else to do. Like everybody is done. We're just kind of like puttering around, doing nothing in particular, socializing, catching up on the leftover stuff, and we're done. Like we have completed everything, all of the content, all the end game raids and stuff like that. We're done. So we're kind of like goofing around. So I'm not important. I took a break a while ago. I missed out on a lot of stuff, but I was burnt out because I usually get burnt out. Their stuff kind of sucked, so I didn't want to play anymore. I came back to get ready for the next expansion, get back in touch with these people, with my guildies. So I had the time. I'm like, oh, I'll just goof around with this weird character, and I have shocked the people around me with the weird stuff that I do. So wow, let's pivot to something way different. Okay, so Audacity is I'm actually recording audio on that right now. Minion and I are creating separate audio tracks. And Audacity it's okay. I mean, it's pretty, it's straightforward, right? Like, it does the job well. I quite like it. And the thing about recording anything is it actually it needs to go somewhere. So it needs to get pressed onto a disc. And Audacity, if you're working with that data, because it isn't about recording necessarily, it's also about going in and making certain kinds of changes to your stuff. And the thing about software is people are used to being able to Control Z and undo what they just did. And when you're working on audio, you might have to do that quite frequently, because you might be making a change and then listening to it and making sure that your change works for your ears, or undoing it, doing it a different way, etc., and just going on and on. And I was doing sweeping track-wide changes for normalization and noise removal, all this stuff, right? All the hard stuff. And the thing is, it would just spit out an error and die. And I'd try to open it up and it would whine about recovering, and then it wouldn't recover. And then I'd just have this blank track and it would destroy what I was working on. And it was awful. I'd have to go and restore from backups, and I'd have to start from scratch. And I've wasted so much time. It's like a good waste of a half an hour every time this kind of thing happens. And because I'm the type, I go and I explore and try to understand what's going on. I look up the error messages, and like, I must be the first user to ever have this stuff happen, because I get no results looking this stuff up. And I finally figure out that it's because I'm running out of hard drive space, because the undo buffer is keeping a copy of the project snapshotting every time I make one of these sweeping changes. So it's like an extra gigabyte every time I make one of these track-wide changes. And I just ran out of space because I was doing all that stuff for track 1 and then all over again for track 2. And it was just ballooning the size of this thing. I hadn't noticed it before, because what I was doing is I would be using it across a USB 3.1 Gen 1 dock, and that drive had a lot of space, but it's slow because it's USB 3.1 Gen 1, what people incorrectly call USB 3.0. And so now I'm noticing this problem. I copied it over to make it go faster, but now I have hard drive constraints. I'm solving that by moving stuff over to a different internal drive. It's like a different internal SSD, and it's so the problem will not happen again, but that has obliterated a bunch of stuff that I was working on, making this editing so much harder. It's just unbelievably annoying to have this kind of stuff happen. So moving right along. I hope to make that Minions problem. Moving right along.
I don't feel happy anymore.
Well,
Wait a sec, how's it my problem?
it will become.
We'll talk about how you do the voicing things, but I bumped. So when I did it's a long time ago when I did some recording,
The video stuff?
and then, yeah, and then I cleaned it up.
You mean cleaning up the audio?
Yeah, cleaning up the audio, normalizing bass and equalizing and such.
Oh, that would have been nice to hear, because you could have helped me. I had to learn this from scratch.
You didn't.
I didn't ask. Okay, well, yeah.
You knew I was doing recording an actual.
I assumed that you had no competency whatsoever, so that you'd be you'd be useless for asking advice. I mean,
The phrase is all there. The one time you don't ask.
I mean, you're the one that doesn't want to be like relied upon. So I wasn't relying on you.
The one time people don't ask.
Oh well. Okay, so you had some previous experience doing audio editing because you were doing So do you wanna talk about what you were doing the video recording for? I mean, do you wanna? Because it's kind of
Not,
anonymous, isn't it, for you? The video stuff.
mm, sort of.
Yeah, he does webcam modeling.
Yeah, I just use a green screen.
you use a green bodysuit so you can paint somebody else over top of you. We get you like a crash test dummy suit. That would work.
Oh, jeez.
Somebody out there is doing that. That would be hilarious. So you have some
Yeah,
prior experience. But were you doing the
and
odd?
then a new version of Audacity changed things, and I had to go peek around and found out through message boards or places that they changed things and moved them to other places, and it was it was still roughly the exact same procedure, just things looked different.
Yeah, they shuffle buttons around and stuff like that, right?
Well,
Um,
they changed how something looked and presented.
yeah, I don't know. I looked into a whole lot of other audio editing stuff and video editing suites, and man, is this stuff. Just the interface is so poor. And I remember back in the day, back in the early YouTube days and stuff like that, people were making things with Windows Movie Maker and stuff like that, and even that was really hard to use. Really interesting stuff, like really simple, really smart, and it was removed for reasons unknown, even though it still works, and I know how to get it installed again and stuff like that. From the Microsoft Essentials pack, I think it is something like that, which you have to find the right nook of the internet to get it. Even I got it from Microsoft, I believe, just from some old archive. So yeah, I do want to do less work because I really do want to get into the Frisian stuff because it is it's probably one of the students' project, like actual class project to create this course, and it's like a university professor and a handful of other actual professionals are involved in the project. So I want to be there and kind of take advantage of that level of expertise, even though they're fairly hands off. So it's kind of important, but it's also kind of important because I'm pretty sure it's going to become an endangered language. Perhaps not in my lifetime, but soon, right? Just it's the old, only old people have it, and everybody else, it's not so common as a first language and all this kind of stuff. Like so, and it's the one. It's basically the one place in the world that has this as a course that I'm in touch with, and that, as it turns out, I'm like the lead guy with the community that's all interested in this. It's like I I just stepped up, so I do want to take it more seriously because I think it's kind of important for. Again, this is the closest cousin to English, living or dead, the closest cousin to English, and that makes it notable, really important. So let's move on a little bit more. How much? Let me switch screens.
A
We
lot.
we have 30 minutes. Okay.
Wait, for what?
For the rest of the show,
More or less.
more or less. So probably like 20, but whatever, right? Okay. So have I talked about? I've talked a little bit about putting my room up on jacks, and it has opened up the floor space and revealed just how dusty all the corners are that I've had bins in and stuff like that. And so I've really got to vacuum, and I've really got to examine how many of these like old computers and stuff like that I really need kicking around, because I have my old computer, and I think it's time that I retire it. But I'm not sure. Do I like donate this stuff? Do I just donate the parts? I guess I don't need a floppy drive because it's got one. Do I need the ability to boot from a floppy anymore for any purpose? I don't think I'm going to be running anything old on hardware. I think it'll be in virtual machines, et cetera, et cetera. Like I could get a USB floppy drive and then take it, turn it into a file, and then use that file with a virtual machine and boot from it. Like all these contemporary solutions, which didn't exist before, they were just awful and awkward, or they were ideas back in the day. Now completely obsolete boxes that I've got. So I actually have technically 2 spare computers over here. And Minion, you gave me like the old full tower case thing that you had. And the reason that I haven't transplanted everything, I can now. I have the actual, I arranged things so I have the space now for it. So it's not physically a floor space. It's not a floor space issue anymore. It's the fact that it's like got a sealed front cover, right? So I can't actually put the docks that I need in, because I actually use that computer for like performing backups and as a media box and all this kind of stuff. And so it actually has multiple drive bays, and I need to be able to swap hard drives out to perform my backups, because although I have internal boxes in it, I also use removable hard drives, and they're removable so I can put them in a fireproof safe. So it's an actual backup. That's what backups are for. And technically I should have offsite backups and stuff like that. But when you're talking about having 8 terabytes of data, uploading all that is going to take a long time. And then you need processes to update that upload. And all that costs money. Like you might be able to get a certain amount free, and then you're talking about money. And sometimes it's quite a lot of money. And sometimes it's if you're lucky, it's just X amount of money per month, and then it is X amount of money for the data transfer. So I would upload it all once, and maybe that would be free just to fill that up. And then I pay a storage fee, kind of like having stuff at a locker. And then there would be a transport fee if I ever wanted to get it all back, because my continent sunk into the sea or something like that, then I'd have to pay a fee to get it all. So that's one of those circumstances where, okay, so when you create backups, when you have backups, I'm not necessarily talking just about computers, but when you have a spare, you don't just need to have a spare, you need to have a spare and a tested means of actually switching to that spare. Okay? And if you have never actually gone through that procedure and proved that you can switch to the spare, you may as well not have it in the first place. Okay? So it's like saying, well, I've got a new unwrapped hard drive over there. So if my current hard drive doesn't work anymore, I've got this other one. And I can just download all my data again onto this new hard drive, and I'm up and running again. But if you've never tried that before, number one, you don't know if that hard drive even works in the first place, because you've never plugged it in and spun it up and looked at it. Okay. Number two, well, when you actually tried to do that, you learn that your computer doesn't turn on again. Your hard drive dies, your computer doesn't turn on again. You swap the hard drives out, nothing happens because there's no Windows on it, for example. And so you have to go and find your USB stick to install it, or you have to find your old Windows. Like I have an old Windows 8.1 CD over there. Well, okay, now I install Windows 8.1, but then I don't have the software to download my stuff. And what was my password for the account? And well, but I need to upgrade Windows 8.1 to Windows 10 again. And then that's all these downloads. And then like all this stuff starts coming up, and it's all kinds of stuff that you might have been able to sit down and meditate on the problem and think about and discover all these things, maybe, but more likely than not, all of these problems will arise as you're going through this process, this kind of checklist that you're building. And it's weird because right at all the way out to the end, it goes like so. You've tested all of the stuff you need to do, but right at the very end, it costs X amount of dollars to get that data to download it. Make sure that that money is in the bank, right? And if it costs nothing, don't assume that you'll have the money. Set it aside. Have it there. Have it reserved. And this sounds like a dumb thing when it's in the context of this backup, this hard drive, this stuff, but you can apply this to everything. Like you can say, for example, that you've got a spare set of knives or something like that. Like you bought a set of knives, you love it, so you buy a spare. Well, if you've never unpacked, if you've never looked at the spare knives, you don't know if they're blunt or not. And if it turns out that they're blunt, well, it's good that you learned it right away. You still have your good set of knives that you're using. Now you've got this blunt set of knives. It's not a suitable backup. No, so if you chip, or if you loan out, you have one of those friends or something that quote unquote borrows something, and it gets damaged or whatever the heck, right? Knives is a weird example, but it could be your tool set or something like that, right? But you go to your spare and you find out that your spares are dull. Well, now do you have the sharpening tools? Do you even know how to use them? Do you want to learn? Like maybe not. I find it kind of fascinating. But is it easy? Maybe not. Do you like get a refund and buy other stuff that is suited for you, right? Do you try to get the exact same model of your original knives, but maybe those are way too expensive, and so you want to just stuff that makes that you can make do with, and to save some money because it's just spares. Like there's all kinds of stuff that happens when you're actually pressuring that system to switch to using the backups. And so there are certain circumstances in my computing life or in my real life where there are certain things that I am relying on, and as soon as I recognize that I'm relying on certain things, I need to obsolete it, and I need to have some backup system in place. I can use that thing, but I have to recognize that there needs to be a fallback, right? And so this is really important for things like hard drives. So I need the ability to know how to switch to my backup drives. And this is actually a remarkably strange problem with a lot of contemporary computing, because I need to have, there's a way to prepare Windows to have it create a recovery USB stick, which I really highly recommend people make. So after this show, go look into that. It's pretty straightforward, Windows S recovery, and then go through the procedure, give it a stick. It will nuke the stick, and it will download a specialized package preparing a bootable USB stick. Try booting onto it and see if you get the proper Windows install thing. Don't actually install, but it's the tool that will let you perform certain recovery actions or install from scratch and maybe try it. Maybe try it on a separate hard drive. I'll try it on a separate computer that's a spare. Understand how it works. But if you don't have something like that, well, what do you do if your computer kind of dies? How do you recover? Right? If I lose my CD, what happens? What does that if I lose that CD, if it stops working, which is a big problem, well, how do I install Windows ever? So there's some problems. There's some weird problems like that. So I'm almost out of stuff. I want to talk about some audio treatment, soundproofing type stuff quick. And then I'm done. Maybe we should talk about the administrivia of, because you were talking about some intro stuff you wanted to do, which I'm fine with. We can discuss that. So,
well, these past few days I've been every now and then just thinking of, it's more like your 80-20 rule, but for me it's like 80 and then
80-0
point something.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like you're 65. maybe like maybe 45-10 if you're lucky. We'll push for that.
If I'm lucky, it's point something.
Maybe, right? And then that's one of the thing is that small amount, that leftover amount, that kind of bit ends up being it ends up contributing to a kind of moral improvement, a moral encouragement to help reveal that you can do better. Like, it's one thing to have the day-to-day grind, but you're not going to find success coming home from work, having worked your full day. Like, that's not an accomplishment. That's just you surviving. And if it's like that from your work life to your social or family, your home or hobby life, however everything works, and at the end of it, all you've done is just accomplish the same as before, well, that's it. That's not an accomplishment. That's just surviving. But if there's this tiny sliver of time that you use that you will recognize in the future, that you've used to improve, so that it isn't just surviving, it's surviving plus a tiny bit of improvement, the next day you will benefit from that improvement. It will encourage you to repeat it, to try a little bit harder, to achieve a little bit more, to learn a little bit more, whatever. And then the day after, or the day after, and it depends on the person, right? So you maybe every year you spend a weekend working on something new. Like, maybe that's all you can do. Maybe between now and the end of the year you set a couple of goals, like 3, no more than 3. Like, if you can't keep it in your head, it's too much. And you don't necessarily need to keep a list of requirements. You just keep your goals in mind and be like, well, this year I want to put out my video. I want to put out my whatever. I want to create a logo, or I want to put my bed up on stilts, or I want to, and that's it. And that when that gets done and you need to actually push, it needs to not be a landmine you ignore. It's not a reminder. It needs to be something that just that you allow to bother you. Then you accomplish that. And then every day thereafter, you get your past self is now helping your present self, having accomplished that. And if you keep acting like that, every time you act like that, your past self is now like wind behind your sail, so to speak. And that's how, and there's some people that are just driven like that all the time. And it's, I hate them. I can't do that. Right. These are the overly upbeat, you can do it, you just try and seize the day. It's just like, no, bro, life's kind of hard and things are busy, and but there is something to learn from that, from the momentum they gain. So yeah, all you need is your fraction of a percent, but you actually have to do it and make it meaningful and noticeable for next time, and then your future self will appreciate your current self, your present self. It's the entire argument with the journaling concept, right? The journaling concept will eventually fragment you out into it'll make it obvious when you have these past successes. Because if it's just a blank page, well, that past self didn't do anything for you, right? And if that happened and you're doing that again today, you know what that feeling's going to be tomorrow and the day after. But if you accomplish one tiny thing, I changed the light bulb in my room. Oh joy, right? But tomorrow comes along, you read that, you're like, hey, I didn't really do much, but I have a new light bulb. That's okay. That's something. That's something. For me, I changed the light bulb. I didn't need to change the light bulb. I just wanted a higher quality light bulb in there. I'm not seeing any difference at all, so it's kind of a waste of time. But I ended up mostly pulling down the entire fixture, which which was frustrating. It had like rusty screws and it was falling apart. And so I rained down the, so it was made in the era of incandescent bulbs. And so it actually had a reflector and it had like insulation. And so my first reaction to insulation was, oh, is this asbestos? Because it was old. But no, it's not. And I couldn't put it all back together again properly. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not putting in incandescents. Like technically Canada wasn't supposed to have incandescent bulbs anymore. So these are the ones that basically generate heat in order to for that inefficiency to create light. It, and it's an awful power hungry, it's the old stuff, right? So now we're switching to all kinds of LED type stuff, right? And it's power saving and it's cool and all this kind of stuff. And so that's never happening. It's never happening in the ceiling light, so I'm not going to worry about it. This is why a lot of the warnings that say, oh, maximum 60 watts and stuff like that, it just doesn't apply anymore because we don't have bulbs that use that much power anymore until you're talking about like broad spectrum growing lights for gardening. If you got an indoor herb garden, how do we want to pronounce that? If you're growing your rosemary on your like
windowsill
table or something like that, but it's not good enough for some stuff, especially wintertime and such. So you need to have, like, there are these little specialized boxes with these lights in it, and it generates a massive amount of heat, but it's for broad spectrum light because certain plants really, really require that. They just won't live, they will not survive in regular room lighting. Onions are really weird because they apparently work well on a windowsill with terrible indirect light. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, if you're growing fairly sensitive plants then. And so those things have wattage problems. But overhead lights, yeah. So I pulled out the insulation. So that's an example of, like, technically speaking, that was a bit of my 20% that I went to go, and it ended up being this massive waste of time that took me the evening and some sweating and standing on a chair to figure out. And so it was terrible, but today and tomorrow and the day after, I can at least look back at that fixture and know that at least I changed the light bulb. It was dumb and there's a story attached to it, but it
clap, good job.
like, okay, well, I have always known that I wanted to replace that fixture, but I didn't know what was up there. That's a problem that there's a lot of like pseudo chandeliers and stuff like that in old houses where it could have some wacky fixture stuff because it's dealing with the weight or it's an atypical kind of installation. So there's always this concern where if you open stuff up somewhere that it's weird. And in my case, it was hard to put back together again. But I got a chance to look up there as well. So it's a side benefit. And now I can think about, well, now I know what the wiring is like. Now I know what the mounting is like. And I have the additional, this misadventure gives me the additional advantage of having all this extra knowledge so that I can be empowered, I can be informed, and I can go out and purchase a replacement. Or I probably won't go and get something in a thrift store, something used, anything like that. I'll probably get something new. I'm just not sure. This feeds into problems of lighting and all this kind of stuff, which is, I have certain considerations for that. I'm not sure how to approach some of the problems. My next, other than the curtain thing, which I'm not convinced I need to do, I might disassemble that part of the room and it would just be clean. It would have shelves. I don't know. I don't know. The other thing I'm thinking about is what to do with like soundproofing or insulation or sound treatment, or I've got some ideas, but we'll see. We'll see. I think one of the things I want to look into is how the heck to try to soundproof that washing machine. I don't know if I can do anything with the water pressure problem where it bangs the pipes, somewhere, because I don't think I can open up the walls. I know enough now that I could open up the walls, and I could re-drywall and stuff like that. I know how now. It's pretty cool. I went and learned. I learned me how to do that. But I'm thinking of putting the washing machine on, like, there are these special rubber cups that you put underneath the feet, and it would prevent it from making so much noise when it's kind of like wobbling around a little as it's doing its washing, as it's doing the because it's moving a whole lot of clothes and water around, so it's actually a little mobile. Okay. So I don't understand what I meant by my last point. So I'm pretty much done here. Meaning, let's spend some time talking about our the intro stuff. So YouTube has a feature. Sorry about the yawn. Okay. So YouTube has a feature which lets you flag one of your videos as like the intro video. It's on the home page of your YouTube channel. And so what you're thinking about is, well, how do we explain things to help a person who arrives at that page, help sell the show to that person, right? I'm on board. So what you're looking for me to do is prompt us for like assemble a script kind of thing to try to figure that stuff out. Okay.
It's more in the line. Well, hi, just an introduction of hi, I'm this and that, and then a general what we are talking about, and that's it.
Well, one of the things that we could do is because I could show you the clipping, and there are some areas. So when I'm doing, I actually do a full listen, and I will clip things and note things, and I may not pull them out into separate clips, or I might pull them out. So there's like maybe a clip 1, clip 2, or maybe just one clip, depending on what day a show is done in. And there are other clips which are there and just not spun out into their own separate clip because they're too short or whatever. I want something that's a few minutes long, and if it's 30 seconds, who cares? But that work has already been done because I do it as soon as I have the opportunity while going through the file, while listening. I'll take that opportunity and go, hey, that's cool. That's a cool start. And maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but the notes are there. Now, what that means is, in theory, what you could do is go through and like look at the notes and learn how to cut out, how to move, how to copy out, export sections. And you could assemble just a bunch of 15, 30-second clips or whatever. And so we'd have like the script for this would be hello, random, whatever the heck. And then a bunch of example clips, a bunch of these things. If you're interested in this stuff, here's some clips. Do the little clicky box thing, the overlay, or check the description of this video. And if you want to get into the show, start with episode number 1 or start with where we're at right now. You can catch us live here, do all this pointy stuff. Like I'm perfectly fine with breaking out the camera and setting things up as best I can, which is pretty good. And having my face shown, that's fine. So really what it comes down to is what you want, how you shape things. And like, you're in charge. You tell me what you want to do.
So just as the concept of that was just a sort of like a greeter at the door. But
basically, yeah. One of the challenges is the notion that this might be the first impression that people get. And And it's a little bit scary because technically speaking, every show might be the first impression that people get. That's why I'm trying more and more to make that first 5 minutes good. To get the administrivia out, to push it away, to ignore it, for us to not have any of that chatter that we have to. I cut that out of the finished product to start right into the first topic. I want to lead with our best foot. So every show is a little nerve-wracking in that sense. Everyone is very important. And so that homepage video is also very important because it's probably also a first impression, right? So somebody might be interested in video 1. They look through it. They're like, oh, these guys are pretty good. I wonder what they're all about. And they'll click on the name, our channel name, and this is the next video that autoplays or whatever. So yeah, it's important. So yeah, I mean, the style that has been most successful is to not do one of those, hey guys, what's up everyone, and then have the 30-second intro with the animations and all this. Just no. Hi, this is what we're all about. Hi, I'm this. Hi, you're that. This is Minion. Shut up, Minion. And I tend to ramble a lot because Minion doesn't know how to talk yet. I'm not giving him much of a chance because why bother? I mean, this is what happens. Here's a couple of his...
Actually, that sounds perfect. Why? That sounds somewhat perfect.
See, that was an example of it.
And then we'll change it. And then once I actually get brave enough to speak more, we'll update and go old, make that old, and then make the new one. Sure. Hi, I speak a little bit more. No, quiet you.
Well, yeah, and then like here's a few examples of how awesome I am. Just like
here's all the examples of how awesome you are.
This is just a small selection. I mean, it's like hundreds of hours of content here about how awesome I am, obviously. But here, I'll just give you, it's not the best of, because that would just take too long. But here's some, they're adequate. And like, just some examples. So this is like time management or some business stuff or some random stuff or a little tech or, you can also follow us because we have no idea what we're doing. I mean, Minion doesn't. I'm pretty good, obviously. But since Minion's learning and as we're growing, we're talking about what happens with this show. We're talking about behind the scenes. Hey, if you're looking at doing something, you're not going to be better than us, obviously. But you can at least learn a little bit. Learn about some of Minion's mistakes and see if you can, obviously you can do better. But we'll give you a leg up. Learn about lighting if you want to be on a webcam. Learn about audio treatment. Learn about how the heck I look so good on camera and have no shiny head. Hey, do you want to do video with no shine in your glasses? There's a trick. I can teach you all these things. The show's not about that, but it's a side benefit.
Really be shine in actually the monitor reflection.
No. Yes, you can actually film with no shine in your glasses. You can even turn your head around. Now, there's some limitations with that. This is one of the things I went and learned when I was looking at like head glare, is learning about glass reflection. And it's all about where your lighting is positioned. And you can still light a person quite well. But the trick is to have a large diffuse, I can talk about this, the large diffuse light, like the sun off in the distance. It has to be nice and bright and really diffuse because when it's a tiny little spotlight, you'll see that tiny little spot, that glare. And as a person moves their glasses with their head, right, that glare will dance around and it will be this big, obvious, like will-o-wisp dancing across their face. But if it's a big diffuse light, you'll get away with that. And if a person moves their head, that big spot doesn't move with them because it's just so big. And then you fill the other side of a person's face because it's a big bright light. You fill the other side with a reflector, a giant piece of styrofoam for all it matters. And so yeah, on that note, if we ever get something shipped in, do I have anything? I don't think I kept anything. If you get something shipped in that's got a big piece of styrofoam, yeah, we should keep it just for this purpose, actually. If it's good enough for professionals, the $2 piece of styrofoam. And and so
Didn't I get a few within my bed frame?
I don't know, it might still be up there. You were too lazy to actually clean up after yourself, so it might still be in those boxes.
Huh. Neat.
It might not be panels that we're looking for, because you need something that's about as large, well, preferably almost as large as a TV would be really nice, but it needs to be bigger than a person's face for sure, right? So you need to reflect all that light to fill in the shadows that get cast. Even if it's a big diffuse light, it's going to create a darkness on the other side of the face, and you want to fill that back in. And when you end up having these kind of like diffuse, distant, certain angles of light source, usually up and on an angle, you want to fill in a different way. When you do that, you don't have reflections that go from light source to glasses that bounce into the lens. That's where the glare comes from. And you have it bounce off into another direction. But it's weird because there's different layers on glasses, like different treatments. So there's anti-glare treatments, but it's anti-glare like from your perspective, not from the outside perspective. And there's like sunglasses, or there's curved, like this kind of sporty sunglasses and stuff like that. And there's the size of the glasses that's going to matter, and all kinds of stuff, right? So, but it's all perfectly doable. So you have to think, the technology isn't new. Like glasses aren't new, filming isn't new, photography isn't new. All the stuff is putting it up on YouTube isn't new, and we're getting more and more people that are just providing really excellent knowledge for free. The suckers. But yeah, it's all out there. So I can learn. I mean, maybe you'll get around to like learning stuff, but doable. Like, don't be all, oh, it's hard. Just go watch a 15-minute YouTube video, get all learned and stuff. At any rate, so yeah, I mean, just like, it's an intro video. Probably the best thing to do is to not try very hard, because that's like, and don't stress it, and just be fast and loose, be honest, and get a bunch of good clips, and whatever that can be updated. Like, if ever you, going forward when doing the audio editing and listening through a show, if you come into something that just sounds really cool as a little intro clip, like just a sentence or something, be like, oh man, I'm just going to keep that for later, and just yoink and put that into like the folder of interesting stuff, and it's just tiny. And then after a little while, you're like, it's been a while. You look at the junk folder, so to speak. You're like, hey, let's just make a new intro video, like right now. It's been a month or two, whatever. Go put it together, done. And it's like the best of for the best of tiny clips from your estimation, right? So you probably have bad taste, but we'll work on that. And whatever, just put out a new one. It's not hard. And that's it. And like, we could reuse our boring high I'm stuff. Yeah. So we're almost done. Is there anything else you want to chat about?
After being demoralized like that, not anymore.
Well, I mean, stop sucking, and then I'm just saying it like it is.
Stop being me.
I'm agreeing with you. What could go wrong with that? Look, all you need to do in life is, like, it's the old know what you want and then go after what you want. But and I've already like pointed you in the direction of how to think about these things. But all you really have to do is like look around at the landmines that you've got right now. They can be physical or they can be virtual in some way, and just take them and put them in a list. Take a couple, take the rest of the list, push it away. Just ignore it. Right? You take your few things, just get them done. Get them done this week, this month, I don't care. And just get them done. And when you're out of stuff to do, don't get bored of one of the things and then reach for that list. Just do them. And when you're done, look at the list again, go, oh, I'm most interested in this, pull it out, work on that. One of these days you'll be able to hang that poster I gave you from a long time ago. You took so long on that. I had a full opportunity to get the complete set of Destiny 2, all the characters. And I decided to just pass on it. Like, nah, I'm not even going to bother because you didn't do the work to earn the first one. So like, that's what you lost out on, plus plenty more. So the world will pass you by. And you may not care, but you're going to start having more and more regrets as you look back at your life and you don't have the posters on the wall. You don't have the whatever. Like, this is episode 20. You need to stop and recognize how much of an accomplishment that is already. How many weeks has that been? There's more stuff that isn't released. Like, how much have we improved since then? Once we get on camera, it's going to be more of the same. Every single day, you're going to be able to look back and go, look at how much footage we've made, etc., right? And you need to take that and then pull it forward as your encouragement. Like, look at what I did yesterday. I can do a little bit more today. Like, oh, I don't feel like it. Oh, no problem. Can you do it tomorrow? Well, why not? Do you have an excuse? Well, who are you giving that excuse to? I don't care. You care. Your future self is going to care because your future self needs you right now. Right? So you are depending on yourself. Stop letting yourself down. All this kind of nonsense. Anyhow, just do it. Do the pump thing from, what's the guy's name? Wesley Crusher.
Who?
So the actor in Star Trek: The Next Generation, for one of the characters, was an absolute insufferable. I don't remember him that way, but a lot of people just hated that character, and the actor is a little insane and really hyper aggressive, and it's just meme worthy, hilarious, and it did one of these oh so privileged rich person, the like, only a white guy would act like this, would like give the motivational advice just to ever, okay, I'm not so white that it's bad for me. I can do it. Obviously I can do it. But he acts like such an insufferable jerk, just saying, well, you can do anything you want in life, which is a lie. Just do it, which is a lie. You know what? You just...
Oh, you mean Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah. And it's not true that you can do anything. It's not true that you can motivate yourself. It's not true that you can accomplish anything you want. These are all lies. These are all absolute lies. But you can do some stuff. There's some stuff that you like, that you should work on, that you can do a little bit better, right? You can dream too big. You can let yourself down by dreaming so big and trying and failing because it's too big. Like, don't dream big. Don't dream. Just do better than yesterday. Do better than you were yesterday. That's all you have to do in all of life, and you'll just gradually creep along. And you'll be 90 years old and you'll look back and go, look at this snail trail of challenges that I've overcome. And look at, I'm here. I've tried every day. I've had my abject failures, but I've accomplished, look at all this stuff, episode 1000 or whatever the heck that happens later. And you're like, you know what? We had 0 subscribers at one point. Now we have 10. This is awesome. It's just tiny victories. That's all people need. And these dumb celebrities that just want to virtue signal all over people by going, you can do it. Like, no, I don't need your advice. Like, no, just no. Anyhow, so we're done. This was episode 20 on 2020-09-20, which was that's a date that's
bunch of 20s.
That date is never going to happen again. Never. It's really special. So
What, the 20 thing?
yes. Never again. Every day.
Well, let's see.
Every date is special, but you know, I love when people say nonsense like that. And here,
Ha! You're wrong.
what?
December.
What? 2020, 12/20?
Yes.
I don't understand. Then that will be the
You
only.
said you'll,
Then that'll. I.
and then it'll be 2020, 2021. Or it'll be something 21, 2021. That'll be a fun tongue twister. Right? I didn't
No.
I didn't check the calendar just to look for a small victory or anything.
No? Well, I'm not following you. It doesn't matter. I was making a different kind of joke. Anyhow, so thank you all for listening, and we will catch you on Wednesday. Hopefully I'm still working on number 15. Anyway, catch you all later.